Are people leaving your chiropractic care, or are they just leaving your message? Hi there, I'm Greg Venning. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor, the podcast that helps you to build your attractive practice, one where you have inspired alignment, where your systems set you free, where you have resonant growth, and you expand to freedom. And in today's episode, we're delving into what it really takes to help to keep people under chiropractic care. It's not about education or better explanations. It's about alignment. When your values and their values deeply connect, everything flows. So let's talk about how to find that alignment and to build a practice that people never want to leave. Let's talk about how most dropouts are not about money or about time. They're about misaligned values. Let's talk about how curiosity is far more important and powerful than explanation. It opens the door to trust. And let's talk about how when care really connects to what matters to most people, then the idea of retention disappears and we have people ascending through different levels of care in our practice where they can stay, pay, and refer for a lifetime. As you listen to this, if you hear anything you think a friend or a colleague might love, please send this on to them, either on YouTube or on the podcast platform of your choice. And as always, subscribe, give us up to a 5-star rating, and listen on. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor podcast. We help you grow as visionary, vital, and capable chiropractors who are always on. We do things differently as we help to elegantly awaken your innate wisdom within. We help you create robust, predictable, and trustworthy practices that serve oceans of people and yet still have free time for yourselves and your families. We use neuroscience to deliver better business results so that you can get greater, deeper, and more effective impact in more ways. We are Questing Chiropractors, and this is our story.
Yes, Nimrod, welcome back. It's good to be on again. The last couple of episodes with Mark and Emma have been so rich. I'm really looking forward to digging into some of the richness that Quest brings in today with you.
Yeah, and I've actually, nice pat on the back to all of us at Quest. I've had some nice feedback from traveling around the world and meeting chiropractors all over the place that they're enjoying our podcasts and they're getting a lot out of it. So, it's nice to be able to connect with chiropractors all around the world. Hello, wherever you are, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, it is lovely to have you with us.
Yes. And, because what we do is all about aligning with their values.
That's a rich conversation, isn't it?
I got that in there first.
So the whole process of aligning values for us is such a key part of helping to create longer term relationships in practice. Actually, values are at play when it's a short-term relationship as well. But if we desire to have people have the benefit of chiropractic care for longer, if that's something that feels like it's pulling you forward in practice, then the magic of that, we recently did a training called the First 6 Adjustment Visits Training, and that led us to the idea of this aligning, and we wanted to take this podcast even further on how to actually do that. Let's make this practically implementable to you. If you haven't watched the training, you'll still get tons out of this. If you're a quester, that training was really, really powerful.
And if you're not a quester, it's available too.
Yes. So the inside joke is that we're aligning values all the time. And so we're going to do that on this podcast together.
Yeah.
The richness of this in human relationships and your relationships with the people you serve in your practice. And this is absolutely central and essential to what we do to have longer lasting, deeper, more fulfilling relationships.
Yeah. And can I just say also, just a little caveat on that. If you're running a chiropractic practice, which is a business, it has two desires. One is as a business and also as a chiropractic practice to serve the community. If you have any essence of ethics in there, your desire is to satisfy the people to some extent who come in to see you. In order to satisfy them, you got to know something about them and what's important to them. And that's the only way to satisfy, right? It's satisfying from their perspective, not from your perspective, from our perspective.
As professionals, as people who are there as service, we're there, they're in their best interests. In most jurisdictions, we have an ethical, legal responsibility to act in their best interests. And so knowing what those interests are, knowing where that takes them in life, where they want to go in life, where they can't feel, like where they feel like they can't go in life right now, it's absolutely essential to what we do. We talk about in Quest, we talk about running this attractive practice. And the first two parts I think are really, really key here. So the first part is to be able to love what you do and then be able to magically, almost magnetically attract hundreds of people a year who are right for you and who stay, pay, and refer others. And so that's an essential part of the attractive practice. So that first part is that it's attractive to you. Yeah. And that's where we maybe start is the bigness of chiropractic and how much this lights you up every single day, every single interaction, whether it's a consult, whether it's an adjustment visit, whatever's going on. And then the second part is that we're doing it in a way that serves them and their interests, and they can feel it and they're attracted to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to come from your heart, from your inspiration, from your values. It's a virtue to you. And as a result of that, it becomes an energy that goes out there and is magnetic. And when it resonates well with the person who is in front of you, who you're serving, then they're going to rise to a greater way of being. And as a result of that, see more fulfillment and satisfaction and beauty and magnificence in their life. And that's really, one of the biggest stories of chiropractic, just how with the smallest things we can create huge ripples of effect that are transformational on the individual level and on the society level as well.
Yeah, and that's reflected in the big idea. BJ Palmer's real piece of prose really about the big idea and how a slip on a sidewalk or from a ladder is a small thing, but how it leads to a subluxation, which in a person's life is a big thing. And removing the subluxation might seem like a small thing, but the effect on a person and a community and a nation and a world is a massive, massive, massive idea.
Yeah.
And so a practical thing to do that is to dig into, like, what is chiropractic to you? And really kind of a short phrase or a sentence of what is chiropractic to you is really, really important. Within Quest, we guide our questers towards a guiding statement to start about what you do within your practice that is inspiring to you. And as they develop more with us, we develop their statement of purpose, their affirmational statement of purpose, which really then encapsulates a lot of what we do from many different dimensions. But it's this lovely thing that we can read and we can recite together as a team. And it's a rally cry, but it is really deep. We call it the heart and soul of our practice. And so I think that's number one. If we want to get tactically, practically real with that, is work on that. Work on what chiropractic is to you and work on a guiding statement of the purpose of your practice and get some clarity on that.
Yeah. And just to, dive a little bit deeper for a second into that, through Quest, what we also do is get our questers to define the big problem they're loving to solve, they're inspired to solve, and how at a local level they're going to do that. And when they do that well, we just see them light up. And that becomes so attractive when they know this is the solution we're bringing to this real world problem that is a pain and ache, an inspiring, motivating thing for me to resolve. And that just brings the whole team's, the whole practice's values to life, and the community starts to pour in to come and see their lives transformed as a result of that.
So I guess once we've got that reasonably handled, we got an opening on that, then the next thing is to take that intention that we bring to the adjusting space and then start to figure out what this person is bringing to us at any moment of time. And there's degrees of this. And the classic thing we might see in the practice is somebody comes in with some kind of ache or pain. And I'm going to suggest that that's a superficial surface layer concern. And not that it's small to them. That's a big thing. It's really real in their lives. We're not minimizing that. But in terms of what is possible, that's a small thing, right? That's a surface layer thing. And what happens is in a lot of practices and a lot of ways of life, we meet people at that surface layer thing, we help them with that surface layer thing, and then the job is done. They had that outcome, we came with the outcome of meeting that, and once the pain's gone, the job's done. And in a more pain-focused practice, that is amazing that can get done, and you want to get it done as quickly as possible. You want to communicate that as clearly as possible that that's the intention. Once the intention's done, we're done. The option, if you see chiropractic as something that goes deeper than that, is to then start to look below that surface level and try and find out why the person's in the practice. And the idea that we get from human behavior in that is that people aren't actually with us for that pain, whether it's a real pain or a metaphorical pain. They're with us for the loss or the perceived loss that pain is causing or is going to cause in their life. Let's use an example. Let's make that real. Mums comes to you with headaches, and it means that she can't be the mum and the working woman that she wants to be in life because it's robbing her of energy. Okay, cool. So surface layer, headache. Deeper, affecting her and family, but then even deeper is who she wants to be in the world is being affected. And so we see that grow, her outcomes grow. And if our bigness of chiropractic, if we can say, hey, with the bigness of chiropractic, I can serve those deeper identity level questions as well as these surface layer questions. I'm much more used to her in an ethically based pace. I can actually help her very ethically. And it'll probably take a longer term to get there. And it's not just the adjustments that play a role in getting there, but it is central to what we offer. Now we can have a longer term relationship. Now long-term care becomes something that is both ethical and practical and that they can agree to on some level.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I think that it's really useful to have a map. In Quest, we use the journey. And I always refer to this as the sorts of different health awarenesses that people have. For people who haven't seen it, there's the kind of crisis where people are, as you can imagine, with crisis, they're just trying to survive the day. And then beyond that, there's a bit of regeneration where they're trying to reorientate themselves in life. And then beyond that, there's the optimization or the wellness or whatever you want to call it. And so people at those different levels will have different perspectives on their values. Obviously crisis, because it's survival, is just the most important thing is the fire that's burning down the house, right? That's the headache that's stopping that mom from focusing, from picking up her kids, from being great at work, whatever it is. But then when they come out of that and they start flourishing a bit, they can have a perspective that looks further in the distance, either in time or in space or in their abilities. And so they'll start to move from that crisis, putting out a fire, survival, into more, how can I reconstruct my life? How can I regenerate? What sort of things become important for me as, then come online for me as I'm looking with a bit more perspective? And then way beyond that is, when they're up in optimization, is more about, well, who am I as a human being? And what is of most importance to me? And how would I do things that are going to be supportive of that or damaging to that? And so chiropractic plays very different roles at all of those levels. And, if you don't have the journey poster, it's super useful. Have a look at it. Grab a copy of it. Definitely with coaching, we use it a lot, but it's a map that helps us, simplify some of these concepts, but also communicate them really nicely.
Or everyone listening or watching, I'll put a copy of the link to the journey post and resources in the show notes. And really what we're talking about here is, the way I talk about it is we're values hunting. We're finding what values this person has beyond the superficial that's on their mind that they're telling us now. It's not like they're hiding it away. Very rarely are people actually hiding it away. Mostly it's just not in our conscious mind at any moment of any day when they come into your office. They've had 10 things they've just done. They're now in a place where it's a little bit different. They don't quite know what to expect. They're going somewhere else. So they've got a lot going on in their mind. So it's our job then, it's our role, our responsibility to values hunt, to try and really get clear on what they're actually after. And for some people, it may just be they come in and they go, yep, all I'm after is that surface layer thing. I want it done as quickly as possible, and I want to go. I'm not interested in getting to an underlying problem. I'm not interested in maximizing my health. That's not on my radar. And that's amazing. You can then choose in the very first interaction, first few minutes, we call it the yes consult, whether that's something you do in your practice or not. And there's no value judgment either way. We tend not to do that very much in our practice. And we then tell the person, great, that's not quite what we focus on. There's somebody down the road. We'll give you their number. Our front desk will phone their reception, get an appointment as soon as possible. They don't get charged for it. Most people leave with big smiles on their face. And they tend to then refer other people to us. They'll say, oh, George came to said I should go to you because I want to get to the underlying problem, and you guys do that.
Yeah. So Greg, just to take a little detour there, why is it your practice handles that with so much love and compassion and support?
I guess I have before been in a judgmental place of that, of almost looking down on people who just want short-term pain relief. And I realized that in my own experience, my own journey, that was me judging other people by my values, and realize that that's just a horrible way to be a human being in the world. So the biggest part of that is honoring the dignity of that individual, that being in front of you for what they truly want. And if we provided some context, we've got some informed consent going there, because so many people will come in thinking they want surface layer. And just in the first few minutes, with a little bit of gentle values hunting, and we'll give you some practical things in a sec, they realize they actually want more. I would say the vast majority, 95% of people actually go, oh, actually, no, I want that if it's possible. Can we sort this out? And then we can get to that. That's great.
Yep.
We can work with that.
Yep.
And the people who go, cool, I see what you're offering. It's not for me. I just want this. It's like, beautiful. Let's send it to people who do that really, really well. So it's honoring the individual of where they are and not judging them by our values.
Well, and, so what this is really highlighting is you and your practice, the ethos that you have, values human dignity and honoring each individual. And so you're exemplifying that even when you're, quote unquote, rejecting someone from your practice.
Feel like a rejection. It feels like, and this is how we want it to feel, it feels like us serving their best interest in the best way possible, even when it's not us who do it.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's play with this idea of values hunting, if we're going to be very practical here. The best way I've heard it put forward is, imagine you went into a hardware store and you asked somebody at the counter for a 5mm drill bit. Somebody meeting you on the surface layer would go, sure, here's the 5mm drill bit. Let me ring this up for you. Will that be cash or card? Thank you. On your way. Somebody who's doing some values hunting would go, great, let me help you with that. By the way, what do you want the 5mm drill bit for? And which wall is it for? Is it for masonry? Is it for wood? Is it for steel? So they're doing a little bit of values hunting to get on the thing, on the ramp of where you actually are. Because if they've got great intentions, they don't want you to have to come back to the hardware store 3 or 4 times with the wrong thing. They want to make sure they're giving you the right thing. So values hunting is finding out what's it for. A really engaged person in a hardware store would then go, Greg, you're putting up bookshelves. Would you like to see the kind of bookshelves we have on offer help you plan what you've got, or have you already got a plan? Have you got bookshelves? So it's taken you a layer deeper. A master at helping you will try and, without asking you directly, will try and figure out why you want bookshelves, not just because you want books organized, but because you want the identity of being a person who has organized books on a bookshelf. So when we're values hunting, if we want to go to some of the deepest layer, we're trying to figure out what is the identity of this person that they're trying to self-actualize. Now, you're not going to get that from asking them the question directly. What you can get directly is, what are your hobbies? What are your pastimes? What job do you do? Are you married? Do you have kids? Those kind of things will start orienting you to some of those values. Like, what do you want to do with the 5mm drill bit? And then by being with them and asking those questions about hobbies and things and getting an idea of what's going on, say it's the mum with the headaches, if she gives you straight away, this is really affecting my time with my young child and my ability to be the CFO of this organization, you're already getting a sense of identity that's not being met. You don't even need to dig deeper. You're already there. You can then grow that with her over time. So for me, that's what values hunting is finding out what really matters to this person so that I can then ethically and congruently take my big idea of chiropractic and my practice of it and put it into places that can match it for her and then offer her those levels of matching that are appropriate to what she can take on at the time.
Yeah. So you jumped ahead a few steps there. I think I don't want to leave the listeners in the deep water.
Yeah.
So let's rewind right down to exploring their values. So what it takes, and we're talking about in a first visit, and maybe, seeing this from the context of, well, maybe it doesn't just happen in the first visit. Maybe it happens in the first couple of visits, first couple of months, first couple of years, maybe. What does it actually take to explore their values and to start to get a feel for what is of most importance to them?
Do that, and the answer to it, the short answer is curiosity, is having curiosity about the person.
Yep.
And what I've done is train myself to do that, is to do it everywhere I go. So I was at a birthday party for my youngest daughter. It was one of her friends' birthday parties. And while I'm sitting with these parents who I don't know, some of them I do, some of them I don't, instead of going, where do you live? What do you do? Asking somebody, cool, what are your interests in life? Or if you feel you have the rapport, what are your passions in life? And it really gives you some beautiful conversations, number one, but training myself to that curiosity of what is this person actually about beyond the labels that they might put on themselves means that you do it at the practice just so much more naturally as well. And doing this wherever we go leads to richer relationships, much better conversation. You don't talk about the weather nearly as much or the traffic, two things that grate my soul to talk about. And then in practice, you find that this is just flowing more automatically to you in practice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say absolutely starting with a mind space of curiosity, a perspective of curiosity, and, being really open to receive whatever they bring. So that means leaving our own judgment at the door, that we may judge that, I don't know what, being the best baker in the world or being the best hobby plane pilot in the world or whatever it is a ridiculous value. But for them, it's what brings them alive, right? And so that's listening with intent of curiosity and openness and awareness rather than any sort of judgment, and looking for these clues or these hints. So you mentioned, what they may be doing or where they may be putting their focus. These are the sorts of things that can hint at what they value, right? Or how they spend their time, their energy, their money, their focus, their priorities, what they do in their spare time. These all, as well as what do they do for a job? Do they have a family? Do they have pets? What sort of pets do they have? Is it a goldfish or is it a snake? Those things can really help us explore and understand the other person from their perspective with a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion and curiosity.
Yeah. What I've found quite useful is a follow-on question when somebody gives some of these what I'd call kind of deeper drivers to you getting towards deep values, is if somebody talks about maybe for running. Oh, I just love running. And you go, like, what is it that running gives you? Is it a way to be fit? Is it a time on your own? Is it mental space? Is it an expression of who you are? And very often people go, it's all of those. And then if you hold a space and you do the beautiful magic silence, they'll go, but most especially, it's meditative time for me. Like, oh, beautiful. Great.
Yeah.
Lovely from a human to human perspective, just to be interested and curious about what drives people and what lights them up. And then from the professional role we take on is, okay, now it is partly my responsibility to find out how much I can help to serve this person to get more of that in their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just a quick little side note here. I see so often people, new grads or other people who are starting to play with this idea of values, to just stop at the surface. If you ask someone, why do you like running? Because it gives me more energy. And they just kind of write down running or they write down energy. But it's actually in the depth of exploration that we start to see, well, what is of most important to this person in terms of things that they have to do, they love to do, they see as really important in their life. So I love running because it's meditative to me and my work is so stressful that if I don't have this meditative space, then I just explode with my family when I get home. Right. So that's a whole lot of other levels of depth of their values rather than just writing down they value running.
Started to get to some identity things. If somebody told you that, they value the identity of being a version of someone at work and a version of someone at home that's not being met now. And it's those deep incongruencies in identity that we then find the surface layer ripples are being caused by. Now, it's not our job to go and reconcile those identities for them. That's their life task.
Absolutely.
But it's our job to try and see if we can uncover those and serve them towards being able to realign themselves. Chiropractic is realignment on a surface level of something structural, much deeper. It's helping to then create alignment through brain, spine, nervous system, and being, so people can do that self-actualization at a higher level. So that's a nudge on further. If that kind of blew your brain, that's okay. Just know that when at each level we serve someone, it has repercussions, positive repercussions to the deeper level. Yeah. And the more we uncover that, the more curious we are about that, the more we'll be able to serve.
Yeah. And so, here's where it's important to make a distinction that we're not psychotherapists, we're not counselors, we're not psychologists, we're not, any of those sorts of sociologists and social workers, any of those sorts of realms. We're chiropractors. So in the context of being chiropractors, why is it important for us to uncover these values? What do we now do with them?
Now we can do is we can start aligning our clinical outcome to their desired life outcomes. And so the first question on that is, do you have clearly explicit defined clinical outcomes? One of the most common clinical outcomes we might have is something like symptomatic relief. You have visual analog pain scale. Great. If you can help them with pain, you can help them towards the outcome of being pain-free and be able to get on the road again. Great. Do you have a clinical outcome of improved biomechanical function, maybe posture? Well, we know that then that would relate to them being able to be a better runner. I practice in Cape Town here in South Africa, and running is quite a big societal thing to do. And like that, from that clinician point of view, lots of people who are running, it's beautiful for the human soul, but is it good for your body? For most people, probably not. But if now I can help you with the mechanics, the neurology of how your body's running, can we make that better? And can I talk to you about improved running and building in part of that as part of our program? Great. Now we've just deepened this relationship where I have clinical outcomes that'll match your desired outcome. And so would you then go further and have another clinical outcome as maybe a quality of life questionnaire, something like an SF-36, where you can now start hinting and finding out what we can do to help to create better quality of life, not for you, but with you. So now you've expanded your role in their life from painkiller to somebody who's enabling them towards a higher quality of life in a much broader way. Now, again, we're staying in our lane of being a chiropractor, but we're opening out beyond the scope of what else might be necessary to be there. And if we're the one who's holding that space, then we're held for them as an authority in that space. Now, we don't want to be the authority in their life, but if you can play the role of, okay, cool. So the next thing is to go to look at maybe a different kind of pair of shoes. I don't have to sell the shoes in my practice, but it's a resource I can send them to somebody else to do. Maybe they need some work on some strength training at the same time as getting their adjustments at a certain level of care. Wouldn't kind of throw that in all at once. Then there's somebody who can help them with that. And if we can play a role of not their care management, I don't like the idea of care management, but it's a facilitator. We're a way shower. We're pointing in directions where it's their responsibility, their life responsibility to do the stuff, but we're encouraging and facilitating along the path with the focus in the practice staying on chiropractic. And in my view of chiropractic, in my practice, it is the adjustment is central to that. And then other places can play a role in all the other things that need to get done.
Yeah, and I think really what we're bringing is an expanded paradigm or perspective or point of view, worldview for them to start to see, for example, how all these things, whether it's the food they eat, the sleep they get, or the shoes they wear, is going to impact their posture, their breath, their health, their nervous system, their ability to run and function and do what's most important to them. And so we don't have to be experts in, how to breathe or how to eat or how to put on a pair of shoes, but it's just about expanding their point of view around all of that, which is what the chiropractic message is, about these cause and effects and about how everything is holistic and vitalistic and comes together in this sort of way. So coming back to values and maybe bringing it right back to day one, day two, visit one, visit two, assuming that people have their visits structured like that. So what we've done is we've got this orientation for us around the big idea of chiropractic. We've done this beautiful values hunting, and maybe we'll get into a little bit of how to do that a bit deeper. And then we're trying to see how does that align with our clinical outcomes for them. And the job is then to map those two, so one overlays the other, and to communicate it to them in a way that makes sense to them. And that's coming right back to day one, day two. Really, if you're here because you have sciatica, and then I uncover that actually it's stopping you from being able to sit at work and to focus or to be with your kids or to go running, then that's the next level beyond that. And if I realize that running is really important because your job is so stressful that if you don't run, you don't get the meditative space, and then you blow up at your kids when you go home, and then you're not the mother you wish you could be, that's hugely motivating. So then I can come in with clinical outcomes of more mobility, better flexibility, better posture, better coordination, more ease, more energy, better sleep, deeper meditative abilities, and aligning that with who you are. Those are my clinical outcomes. Now let's map that. And let's say, well, that's going to take, 6 months. It's going to take 2 years, whatever it is. But we're going to see continually get improvements. And we're going to measure those things that I mentioned over time.
And I'd like to build on that and saying, if we go back to the beginning and we said that the first thing is your intention and the bigness of chiropractic that you hold in your stage of development. If the view of chiropractic you hold is, and not judgmentally, just a narrower and is more pain focused, and you don't see how you can help people to have a deeper meditative practice, then you wouldn't build your care into that. You might, that would be them to do next. If you do recognize through your experience and maybe some reading of literature that there is an effect of the chiropractic adjustment on brain function that does seem to have that effect, or build on or build towards or aid that effect, then you can build that into your care outcomes and your clinical outcomes. So it comes back to that first point of, if you're seeing that you would like to offer people more, but maybe it's your vision of chiropractic that's holding you back, then the job is to go in and to dig into that and see how you might be able to build that based on your experience and some literature out there and mentors that can help you in that space. Sometimes that's the part that's holding us back, is we don't have a big enough vision to match the vision from the person. And then there'll be a short-term relationship. But the bigger our vision is, and the more we can map it onto their values and then onto these outcomes, the longer the relationship will be, because that's where we're both seeing the same map as the chiropractor and the person under care. Where are you now? Where would you like to go to? Great. I can help you get there in those ways. And maybe somebody else helps you in this way. Yes. Okay. Now, when we get to here, where would you like to get to? Okay, great. I can help you to get to, and there's a role for me to play there. Would you like to come along? And so it is. People are attracted to it because it's a growing level of agreement at each level that this person is attracted to come into and stay into. And the part that we haven't touched on yet is that will also help them to refer people into, because they're now seeing at a very narrow level, people might see that if you help them with their headache, let's start with the headache. If you help them with their headache on the left side of the head, they think only people with headaches on the left side of the head are amenable to chiropractic care. And the more your vision of care for them grows, the more their perception of how chiropractic can help other people will grow as well.
Absolutely. And in a way, they'll grow their curiosity, because they'll go, well, how the hell did an adjustment help me meditate better? And so just a little thing on that. First of all, whichever way you want to look at it, the size of your container is the size of their container, or the borders of your understanding and scope and vision of chiropractic is going to create, the frontiers of their ability to fill that space as well. And so, that's the challenge to you. If you would like to see what more is possible, then do go exploring that. And for me, I very much value honesty. So don't bullshit it if you don't know it.
Don't take that as a given in all of this.
Well, there are some people who say, fake it till you make it, or bullshit it and get away with it. But for me, that's not my value.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
And the beauty that leads to is encapsulated in the story that the sick person, so that the well person can have 1,000,000 dreams, the sick person has but one. And if we can meet them at that level and help them to get that but one, which is to get some sense of ease in their mind body again, then it opens them up to those 1,000,000 dreams.
Yep.
And once we start doing that, we can see how chiropractic can serve them towards those bigger dreams that they have, and it becomes an ever expanding process. And I'd say the consciousness by its nature is expansive.
Mm-hmm.
And often what happens when people move out of our practices or drop out sometimes is they haven't dropped out of chiropractic as a vision. They've left because they found a limit of how much you might be able to offer them or how much you've opened up to them. And they've found another realm, another thing somewhere that'll help them towards something bigger that they're going to. So the great thing is, the more we help to grow their vision, the more we have to grow as chiropractors to serve that vision for them. It's continually pushing us into new edges of growth and development. So their growth is our growth, and our growth is their growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, if you blow the walls on your container, you can fit a whole lot more people in there. And, I think that to some degree they leave because they're really satisfied with what you provided. what we didn't provide is a bigger vision for the future of what more is possible. And so they'll come back in with that same level of health consciousness or health awareness, health promotion that we talked about initially. Are they in crisis survival, below the line in the journey poster? Are they trying to reconstruct their life and regenerate, make sense of it, orientate again? Or are they just exploring every niche and corner of what is possible in this conscious experience as a human being? So just before we do move on, because I can sense you're edging to get towards that last quadrant that we orientate around, I want to just explore one thing, which is really practical tools in day one on how, as a chiropractor, you can value elicit, value hunt, value explore with curiosity. So what would be some of the, we talked about a perspective of curiosity, of awareness, of openness, of non-judgment, of being present, of doing the yes, yes agreement. All of these are great tools in themselves. What I'd like is specific questions or prompts that we may use in day one to help people bring out some of their values.
So some really simple procedural things is somewhere on your history form, have a space for hobbies, sports, and interests. Sometimes the history form, the form we get people to fill out is very clinical, black and white, and that's necessary. You need that information. There's also this for the space to try and find out a little bit more about the person that can be in that space. What I found quite useful in terms of a specific question or specific questions that really elicits more is if you feel like you're not quite getting some deeper values from someone. And this, the first one I'll give you works quite well if they've had some kind of symptom going on for a while and they're just coming to you now. The question is, well, why now? So this has been going on for 3 years. Why now? And we ask that from a place of curiosity, not judgment. And if we're genuinely curious about why this is, you'll often then get, it's now getting in the way of my ability to play paddle or golf or carry my child. It's like, okay, cool. So it's built up over time and now it's got to a point where you've suffered enough that it's contravening your values and your identity and you need to take action to be able to reconcile. Okay, cool. I've got you. So by the way, I'm not saying it out loud. That's the internal dialogue.
You could say it out loud to confirm their worldview. Hey, Greg, I just really want to understand. You'd love to travel with your family, and I can see that this is actually, as far as I'm understanding, really stopping you in doing that. Have I got that right?
Given you some, but you feel there's more. Simple questions, because if you ask the question of what's the stopping you from doing, most people are going to give you the answer of nothing. I just get on with my day. So that's not really useful. I would say that's a question not to ask. A question that you could ask is, what's the worst about this for you right now? Not when does it get worse, when does it get better? What about this is the worst thing for you now? So you're asking that in the negative, seeing what they can give you. You could also ask it in the positive of why is this important to you? What's important about this to you now? And so there's a negative framing on one, a positive framing on the other one, and different people, based on their preferences, would respond to one or the other. But generally, one or the other is going to give you something that's taking you, getting you deeper, getting from those superficial down to those deeper values. Are there any specific questions you use?
So there are. Yeah, and I think, be playful with this. Some will work on some people and not on others, and it depends what state they're in. Again, if they're in crisis survival, they're not in a creative open space. So asking them, what would you love to do when you retire may not be appropriate when they're just trying to get through the day. But you can, if they are in a lot of symptomatic presentation, you can ask them, what is this stopping you from being able to do? And they may give you an answer there. As you said, sometimes not. It may be, what are you finding difficult to do? What would you love to do that you're not able to do right now? Those sorts of things, just as an entree, as a way in. I find what really can be useful when you've created a little bit of rapport is kind of future forecasting with them and saying, if it really got worse, if it just went downhill for you, what sort of things would you no longer be able to do in your life that are important to you? And the other side, if we pre-frame this, with chiropractic care with us in 3 or 6 months, this totally disappeared. How would life open up for you in important ways? And so we've laid in the fact that there's hope with chiropractic for it to get better over time. It's a process. And to start to open up to what are their values, what they find. I find specific prompts for different areas of their life really useful. So you mentioned hobbies, interests, pastimes, sports. Knowing what those categories are can be really useful. So understanding that it's how you spend your time, your money, your energy, your focus in different areas of your life. And those areas can be hobbies, sports, pastime, interests, as well as family, social life, work life, and also in your own personal mental life and spiritual life. Those things can be really important to show a lot about people's values and just gauge that to the person who's in front of you. So, asking about spiritual life may not be right for everyone. And for some people, they're really going to open right up there. So it's playful, right? It's about being curious and aware and open and following your intuition around this.
While these are some procedural things you can put in place, once you start to get a hang of it, you really start to connect human to human and become quite intuitive about how you run it. If that feels quite foreign to you, then start with the procedural, have a set few questions that you ask, and while you're asking those, maybe there's 2 or 3 questions you ask at every visit every time. And as you do that over and over and over, you'll start to then get a feel for what's coming your way and where to tailor things. And it'll start to become intuitive as you do it more and more. Like I say, play with these questions with people outside the practice. Get really curious about people's values and drivers outside the practice, so it starts to permeate inside the practice really, really well.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do on that, first of all, have patience for yourself. Know that it is uncomfortable because it is quite a new skill if you haven't done it before. We're used to asking, where does it hurt? Tell me about that. And not about, tell me how it's impacting your sense of spiritual self. It's quite a leap. But do it with people who you've already got with you in care, because you've got a good sense of rapport, and you can just lead with a lot more curiosity through that. Anne, who comes in 3 times a week for the last 3 months. Hey, Anne, I'm just really curious. What are your hobbies and interests outside of work? And just see where that sort of conversation goes. And the other place that's really, really important is in the progress exams or re-exams, because it gives us an opportunity again to orientate, as we said, our clinical outcomes, how much progress I've had, with where we're going and what's most important to them. So realize that these things will evolve as they change their shape of who they're being and their perspective on themselves.
It's actually really useful. We put a lot of emphasis on visit 1 and visit 2 today, but maybe the easiest place to play with this is at regular visits and then at the progress exam. And I bet you, if you played with us at regular visits, got curious with people, when they get to the next progress exam and you go, hey, look, I know, James, we're on this maintenance care schedule now and we've been doing really well, but you've spoken recently about your golf swing. And I think that we could improve this range of motion in your lumbar spine if we did some more of this, what we call regenerative care, where we can do X, Y, and Z, and we can open with this range of motion and might make your golf swing better. Would you like to get back to that? And you might find people re-enroll in chiropractic care at a deeper level because you've now matched their outcome with your outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Little caveat on that. Don't take up your whole adjustment visit speaking.
This is done a little bit at a time. Yes, these are drip-fed conversations that you're looking to build on over time. Absolutely.
Yep. So that leads us beautifully into that expansive possibility of how to make this all bigger and uncover even more. So what is possible there, Greg?
Possibilities in the space are quite literally endless. I think I'm going to touch on 2 parts of expansion here. One is, notice where, just through listening to this and maybe playing with it in practice, is showing you where your next expansion is as the chiropractor. Is it in your vision of chiropractic? Is it in your ability to value hunt? Is it in your ability to have defined clinical outcomes that can match these things? And we can do that with simplicity. It doesn't have to be horribly complex, but where is your next point of expansion? And then very practically for the people you serve, just start thinking, from the next time that you're in front of somebody at a consult and adjustment visit, is what is this next point of expansion for this person in front of me? And if that becomes a mode of thought and a mode of being that we're constantly asking the question on, you're in an expansive frame. You can't help but then uncover expansive frames for people around you. You're going to start to find opportunities where Mrs. Jones is walking unaided without that stick anymore, and you can start talking to her about being able to walk around the block again. And then she's going to see this possibility of taking her dog for a walk again. And that's going to lead on, hey, could you go to this park again that you used to go to 20 years ago? And that's a ripple effect, like a flywheel that builds on itself if you're constantly thinking of what's this next expansive frame. Now, both for yourself and your practice members, do this gently, one step at a time. Sometimes our enthusiasm will outweigh the realities of it, and we might future pace far too far ahead for ourselves and hold ourselves to too high a standard that we try and take on too much and we burn out on it. Or we might jump too far ahead of this person. If they feel it's completely unrealistic, they might pull back. So please be expansive, and be expansive with one step at a time with yourself and with others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a quick little story on this one. A woman who I've been adjusting for quite a few years here in Spain, came in, I don't even remember why, there's some symptomatic thing that got resolved. And then, she found better sleep, more energy, those sorts of things. And just 2 or 3 progress exams ago, so I have a tech CA, my CA does these sorts of questions. And she uncovered that the woman was starting to find her own inner voice within her family. And so my CA jumped on that as something that is a value that's flourishing. She said after, this is a woman in her 60s with kids and grandkids and so on. After so many years of being defined as, a mother and a wife with, that's her role, starting to find her voice, in which she was starting to realize, well, maybe I'm going to say no to my family in these sorts of different ways. And they explored that together. And we had another re-exam this week with a progress exam with her. And as she's saying, I'm really starting to enjoy this, of finding out who I am and where I can push back against my family. So that's you can see the expansive possibilities that we couldn't have imagined. This is becoming a value that's flourishing. It was probably underneath for so many years, but now it's able to come to the surface because of the way that she's learned about regulation and strength and coordination and ease in these ways that really bring someone alive. And had we jumped too far ahead with that, and said, you should go and say, fuck off to everyone in your family, she probably would have pushed back on that a little bit.
A great story that mirrors that. Also, a lady been looking after for a few years, and I'd asked her at the beginning of the year, like, what's your intention for the year? She goes, I want to find out what my flavor of ice cream is, because I always eat the leftovers from my kids.
Oh.
Now, there's a metaphorical meaning to that she was absolutely meaning, but also practically that was what was happening in her life.
Yeah.
And a couple of visits later, I asked her, so what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? She goes, I realized I don't even like fucking ice cream. She goes, I like sorbet. Oh, and she's
amazing?
flourished. She's flourished with that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So this is the magic that happens when chiropractic is part of people's lives for longer, when it helps to open up their nervous system to greater levels of being. And when we get to grow our vision of chiropractic as they grow into it, we're growing into it together, really. It's a beautiful exploration space. It's a beautiful space of mutual discovery and self-discovery. And I know, as Mark from Quest often says, chiropractic can often seem like it's a really selfish thing. We get this huge personal development that we do while we're with others, but we get so much for ourselves from doing it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and that brings us back to what we started with: is what is the bigness of your vision of chiropractic? And now we say it's not just for others; it's for you as well. What is the bigness of that vision that makes it attractive to you? And if we start on that track and we follow those breadcrumbs, we find so much moreness and so much growth in that space. And we can serve from a greater space. And that's attractive to other people. That's where we can magnetically attract hundreds of people a year who want to stay, pay, and refer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just, to round this all off, I think it's not just about clinical outcomes, which it is at some level. It's actually about enriching the human experience. And not only for them, but also for your team, for everyone else in your practice, and for you. You're going to find that the more you move through this journey and open up with curiosity and connection and compassion, that your own human experience is going to expand and enrich your own consciousness through this. And that's the gifts that we have for ourselves. So, we've touched on a number of things. We touched on your big idea of chiropractic. We overlaid people's values over the journey map. And Greg, you'll link to that. You gave us some really nice tools for how to value hunt or value elicit, explore those sorts of things. And then to map them over clinical outcomes. Remember, this has to make sense in the way you communicate it to someone. That chiropractic can help them in the direction that you're laying out for them in that mapping and linking through that. And then continuously evolving and expanding and exploring what's next in terms of their values and their lives. The one thing we haven't touched on is all of this overlays over a deeper skill, which is our understanding through the innate model. And we did structure this implicitly as we're talking through this. What does help as the next level, if you like, of values eliciting is being able to understand people and where their preferences are in the innate model. So maybe if that's of interest to you and you're ready for, values 2.0, then search out some of those tools. I think that's really powerful as well, being able to do all of this communication martial artsness through different preferences. So Greg, 3 action steps people may want to implement immediately. What's landed for you?
Number 1, if you don't have it, have a look at the journey model. It is just such a powerful tool to have in your practice, on the walls, referring to all the time. Number 2 is create a map with the person. The map is, where are you actually now and where do you want to be? And really asking that from a broader view of just pain relief. And then number 3 is looking at what your clinical outcomes are at your practice. What are you measuring? What are you looking at? And seeing how those might be holding you back from being able to offer more. If your clinical outcomes are quite surface layer, again, not unimportant, but if your clinical outcomes are quite surface layer, you're doing a visual analog pain scale only, then realize that's how people are defining you, and realize that that's how you can help people. If you take it beyond that into more functional outcome measures, structural, tonal, quality of life, then you're going to find that you can open people up to broader conversations about how you can help.
Beautiful. Well, Greg, what I would love to share is my values are love, wisdom, life, and above all, the expansion of consciousness in every way possible. So I'm deeply grateful for you and for our conversations together to help me in what I value. And I certainly have experienced a lot of richness in that realm in this last hour together. So a heartfelt gratitude to you.
Thank you, Nimrod. That matches my highest purpose, is to lift the stream of human consciousness and propel the evolution of mankind, and to do it for me first. And so this has been massively enriching to that as well.
Beautiful.